61st Street is an American legal drama set in Chicago, produced by AMC, executively produced by Michael B. Jordan, airs on the CW, and stars Angela Bassett's husband, Courtney B. Vance, Halt and Catch Fire, and Ready or Not's Mark O'Brien, and Mindhunter's Holt McCallany. Now, we haven't done a ton of courtroom dramas, especially lately. The last ones I can think about are The Lincoln Lawyer, So Help Me Todd, In the Dark, Law and Order, Bird Girl, She-Hulk, Perry Mason, and The Premise. But all of those have something in common. They don't, the majority of them don't actually take place in court. Now, I know individual episodes do, but we haven't looked at those specifically. In fact, this season 2, episode 7, The Offer of 61st Street, it's the first time I remember spending more than 50% of an episode in a courtroom. I think it's around 70% here, and the trial is actually pretty interesting.
It's the penultimate episode to the season finale and possibly series finale.
Okay.
But what is the trial about?
All right, so here's how the story goes. It revolves, I think, around what happened in season 1, but I'm not sure because I haven't seen it, but someone was on trial for killing a cop. And they were ultimately found innocent, and the police were furious. So they go to a cop bar after that person has been found innocent, and they get plastered. Then one of the hothead cops, right? His name is Johnny Logan, and he is the defendant in this episode. He's played by Mark O'Brien, and he's the first person I saw in this show, and I was surprised to see him because I haven't seen him since *Halt and Catch Fire* and *Ready or Not*, and he's just a good actor. And so he allegedly leaves the bar before everyone else. Or no, actually, he leaves the bar after everyone else, and then he drives around for a while, and then he sees a black man, and he beats that person to death. That's how the story goes.
Okay.
But throughout this episode, we get to see the witness testimony and the cross-examination. All the witnesses are either cops, ex-cops, forensics people, and they all tell some version of the same convenient story, which is, I was completely outside of what Johnny Logan was doing. I have an alibi. You can't connect it back to me, right?
Now, when you said that 50% of this takes place in the courtroom, do you
70%.
Do you see flashes of outside?
The side story is the weakest part. And I would think that if I watched one of the regular episodes where that takes up maybe 50% of the episode, I would not have liked the show as much. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give this episode a 7 out of 10. It's fun. It seemed like you could watch it independently and you wouldn't even have to see any other episode to like it.
It's fun. That surprises me because this is also produced by the people who did The Shy and Just Mercy. That's the Michael B. Jordan film that came out in 2019.
Now we're getting into my comparisons.
Those are both heavy topics.
Yeah, so when I say fun, I don't mean that. I mean, altogether, the plot had a really cool twist at the end.
Oh, okay.
You knew it was going to happen, but the way they made it work. So throughout this episode, I told you we get those witness testimonies, right?
Yes.
And then at the final reveal of the show is that they do a cross-examination of one of the witnesses, and with new evidence that has come to light that the prosecution side has actually brought to light. So they're actually shooting themselves in the foot because they bring this new evidence to light. It seems damning. It seems like it's going to send Johnny Logan to prison immediately. Uh-huh. But what ends up happening is it opens up the prosecution to a cross-examination for one of their biggest witnesses. And the way that the main character then, Franklin, goes at it is he's able to completely destroy the cop's credibility and hence destroy the lieutenant cop's credibility, and then by doing so destroy the department's credibility.
Okay.
So I have to actually get into the nitty-gritty of what this actual episode does, right?
Because Peter Moffat, he's the one that created this series. I think that he was a lawyer at some point, so obviously that came into play, especially probably for this episode. But yeah, go into the details.
Well, I want to compare it to 7 Seconds, because they have also done courtroom stuff, and it dealt with race. The Shy, The Wire, it's definitely topical. It's a little self-righteous. So I will give it that little nick. So the first witness that we get in this episode is Dr. Prasad, and he's talking about the guy who died. I think his name is Wayne, and he's talking about how the person who killed him would have even heard the bones crunch. That's how badly beaten this dude was. Oh, wow. And so he's trying to, it's a reverse character witness. You know how character witnesses are supposed to go up there and, help you out if you're the defendant and say, this person's actually a great person. This is the exact opposite. They're using these witnesses to completely tarnish this cop and make him seem like he was just a lone central, he was just completely out of it on his own, and again, no connection with the rest of them.
So is it almost the full episode you don't know that that's supposed to be happening? When you say twist, is it supposed to be this whole episode?
The main character of the show, Franklin, is the guy's lawyer. So you know that Atticus Finch moment is going to happen. You just don't know how it's going to happen. But Dr. Prasad goes up there, and there's no follow-up questions by Franklin, the defendant's side. And so so it just seems like they're letting this guy go without questioning how bad the guy was beaten. So that like it's making the jury really, really hate Johnny Logan. And then we have a DNA forensics expert who comes in there, and she has the gun that has Johnny's DNA all over it.
Oh, okay, so it was a gunshot that actually killed him.
I guess so. Again, I wasn't there for the murder, so I didn't see what actually went down. All I'm doing is piecing it together from what they're talking about. But Franklin brings up the point that, like, yeah, they found the gun in the sewer system like 40 days after the murder. But the fact that the DNA was still complete at that point, that they were able to determine like 100% that it was Johnny's, makes it seem as if maybe it was like picked up, held for a really long time, and then given up as evidence.
A full month.
And so he just plants that idea out there. But then we get the cops' testimony. There's Frater and Gallagher, and those are the partners of Johnny Logan, and they're there to basically say the same story, which is that they were at the bar with Johnny. Johnny was drinking way too much. He was going a bit crazy. They left before 8 p.m. and Frater went home and even called up Lieutenant Brannigan, who's the big boss guy, and he actually had his tab open for any cop who wanted to drink that night. So he went home, talked to his boss at 8 o'clock, and that number is very important because later on it will come into play as to incriminate both cops. So then we also get the...
because you were saying the full department gets shut down. Okay, I see where this is going now. Yeah, okay,
so again, then Gallagher gets up to testify. I think like the chief, the one below the lieutenant, but above like a normal cop also was there. And he says he actually went to Lieutenant Brannigan's place to have a one-on-one conversation. So he is his alibi completely because he was with him at the time at 8 p.m. when Brannigan was getting these phone calls.
Right, okay.
And then we get the cop who runs the low bar. So he's like an ex-policeman who decided to buy the low bar and all these cops that come in there. So he's friendly with them. So the thing is, though, that Franklin then pulls out the receipts. And so he sees that even if they're being liberal with how much Frater and Gallagher drank, and they were to take those out, the only other person could have been Johnny Logan, who was drinking. And so what they're saying is that there were 42 shots and 17 IPAs within 2 hours that he must have consumed. That's exactly what they say.
Absolutely dead.
They said, okay, so if we're going to take it out and say you guys were completely sober when you left at 8 o'clock, and that you left at 8 o'clock and you didn't stay any longer than that, then that means that Johnny consumed all this alcohol, and he's talking directly to the low bar guy, and he says, under your like full experience as a police officer, could someone survive that?
And
the guy was like, he was being really cagey. He was like, I'm not a scientist. I can't say one way or the other. But he's like, yeah, but based off your experience. And so this is when they start to like weed away at the storyline. But that's when the new evidence drops. So there's this video out there that Miss Pearson, the prosecution side attorney lady, gets. And it shows Johnny Logan pulling over the guy he kills and just beating the hell out of him. And the thing is, that video was only given to Franklin. He was the only one who had that video. And so Johnny is sitting there watching himself beat this other guy, hearing the jury groan, and basically the courtroom is almost overtaken by people who are like outside protesting.
Wait. So I have a quick question here. You're saying that Franklin was the only one who had this incriminating video.
Exactly.
Did he give it to them, or is this supposed to be like we don't know who ended up getting their hands on it?
I'll get there in a second. So they need to find a way to leave the courtroom without having Johnny be like bombarded or crushed by like the crowd. So they do one of those things where he like flips out flips out his cars, and then he takes Franklin to Muhammad Ali's house.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait,
so apparently he used to live in Chicago, and this was supposed to be a whole allegory for the case. So remember, what is Muhammad Ali always famous for doing?
For like a butterfly thing, like a bee, wrestling.
He took all the hits. Especially his most famous fight with George Foreman. He would take all the battering first and make the other side think that they had the advantage, right? But then at the last second where it feels like the other person is about to win, that's when he's like, I just took what you got and I'm going to lay it all back on you, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so that's what they're doing here. He's pulling the rope-a-dope, and so Johnny Logan's like, it feels like we're losing. And Franklin says, you don't get it. I did release that tape because now with the tape, which he kind of fake protested against. Like he told the judge, like, this isn't fair. You can't just introduce new evidence. That wasn't into the discovery, knowing full well that the prosecution was going to be able to railroad this thing because of it having such importance to the case. But by doing that, he allowed all the witness testimony to come forth from Brannigan to all the cops. And then he was able to go back and pull Brannigan because of the tape. He said, I have extra evidence as well. And the courtroom has to take that in.
So now
Brannigan goes up on the stand, and we never saw his testimony up until now. And Brannigan's played by Holt McCallany, which is, he's got the most cop face in the entire acting world. Yeah, so that's why they, like in Mindhunter, he plays similar where he's supposed to be the gruff cop. So he gets up on the stand, very intimidating, and just as they're replaying the video of Logan beating up this black guy, right? They have the timestamp on the side, and right after that's done, there's a timestamp on the bar, and they have only the angle of the feet, apparently, because the cop knew where the camera was. So Brannigan's feet are shown, and he's wearing these vintage Doc Martens. And so then that's when Franklin's like, could you stand up and walk out? And so he does.
Wait, you're telling me that the person that ended up doing this...
He didn't realize it was going to happen.
No, I understand, but if he knows where the cameras are, and he would wear the same shoes that he wore...
He didn't know that there were cameras on him, I don't think. So if you have vintage Doc Martens that you're known for wearing, I do think it's a little convenient that he wore them to the courtroom.
I thought that you said that he knew where the cameras were.
I think he thought he was dodging them by staying close to the side or something. So he walks out at the same time, but this is showing it's a timestamp past 8 o'clock, past the time he's supposed to be at home, talking to the one other chief cop, and then also getting the phone calls from his partners. This undoes everybody's storyline, and it also slowly shows that Brannigan may have been the person to pick up Logan, which would complicate factors and also make it seem like there were a lot more cops who killed Wayne than just Logan, and that they're just using him as a scapegoat. But that big old gotcha moment, the death stare that Lieutenant Brannigan gives Franklin, and Franklin does an awesome job as an attorney doing I'm not going to go overboard. There are several points where I think that the prosecution should have said objection and before they end up doing so. But
what would they object? Relevance or?
Okay, well, there's a point where this is just a nitpick, right?
Right.
Where he says, y'all are liars. He literally looks at all the cops and he's like, this proves it all. You're all liars. And so I would have thought that's, you object to that and you say, not relevance, but you say that's a speculation or something. I don't know. But overall, I still think it came across as a really good courtroom drama episode.
So that's where the episode ends.
Yeah, we've sort of had our big twist. The side story I'll just touch upon really quickly. We get this smug, suave gang leader who meets up. He has a heart of gold, but he also hates white people. He wants Chicago, or at least part of Chicago, to be owned only by black businesses. And he's invited Norma, who is the mom of the kid that was accused of killing the cop Michael in the first season. I think.
Right, and I think at the end,
we don't actually really see him that much. The second main character.
I believe at the end of the first season, that kid he's found guilty.
No, he's found innocent. That's the whole thing. Well, he's found innocent, and then the cops freak out, and they go to the bar, and then that's when Logan goes and apparently kills this Wayne dude. That's what was that, and I wasn't even sure if Franklin was the attorney on the case, but I have to assume he was.
No, he was.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact.
Yeah. And every scene that the main character is in I was there for. He is just fun to watch. This is his element. I think that he could be cast alongside any courtroom drama and be fun.
Well, yeah, he has a huge filmography.
And it doesn't mean anything, though. I might dislike something else he's in. The Orange is the New Black lady, who's his co-counsel, she plays Nicole, but in she's a side character, but in Orange is the New Black, I hated her character. In this, she's perfectly fine. So that's just an example.
Well, I know that Courtney B. Vance, again, he's the person that played Franklin. He's played a lawyer in other things before. He was in The People vs. OJ, which was critically acclaimed. His role was critically acclaimed as well. He was also in Law & Order, which I know you said that was a comparison to this TV show. And so I think that he has a lot of just depth when it comes to playing these types of roles.
He does make sort of the joke about the overworked, underpaid, underappreciated public defender, which is completely relevant and credible. However, he says, I couldn't afford a Tesla. He's done it for 20 to 30 years. A Tesla's $30,000. I think he could afford a Tesla. I think that joke has been overplayed before because a Tesla does not cost millions of dollars.
So the show didn't come across as preachy at all.
Yeah, I said it has its moments where it's a little self-righteous. And I think if it had concentrated more on that storyline with a gang member with a heart of gold, that I would have yawned a little bit, because I would have been like, I've seen this and it's been done in a more delicate fashion, or in a not a delicate fashion, but certainly a more realistic fashion in things like The Wire, or that, what was that John Barenthal show that came out pretty recently?
Oh, We Own the Streets?
Yes, We Own the Streets. Like those type of shows, it feels like give a grittier, realer look at this type of stuff than, I don't know. This was the most shy part of the episode, and it was more soap opera-y than I would have preferred.
Well, Kamal Angelo Bolden, he played young in the show. He's supposed to be one of the few black officers in an all-white unit, because like you were saying, this is supposed to take place in Chicago.
He's the one who went to Norma's place at one point and said the real story is that Lieutenant Brannigan actually was driving Johnny Logan around after Johnny Logan did what he did. And then he's asking Norma not to tell, because he apparently planted evidence or something. Norma really hates him, but he's trying to make amends for that by telling Norma, who's then going to tell Franklin, who's then going to use that material for later. I am going to be curious how the next episode goes, so I will watch the finale.
You'll watch the finale?
Yeah.
Okay, because they shot both seasons simultaneously, the first season and the second season, but they only showed the first season on AMC last year.
Yeah, it reminds me of Captain Fall, how they had 20 episodes made for the first season. They completely animated the first 10, and they were going to do the same thing with the next 10 as soon as it was greenlit.
Right.
But then it never got greenlit for that. But you're saying they actually have them ready, and
because this is on the CW, what AMC did was they aired the first season, they canceled the show back in January. They said that they were not going to be showing season 2 at all, and then the CW picked up all 16 episodes and decided that they were going to air the second season, which again was already done. The weird thing is that we talked a lot on this show about how CW was acquired by Nexstar by 75%, and I said how Nexstar and even the owner of the CW, Greg Berlanti, said that scripted content, this is especially true when it comes to DC shows, but any scripted show on the CW is not their main priority. Yeah. In fact, the CW
same goes for Discovery too.
Well, yeah, exactly, because CW made a deal with ACC, which is a college, sports programs, that they were going to pick up 5 sports to air football games and men's and women's basketball. It's
really
games.
Weird, because in Disney right now is really suffering with ESPN. ESPN just had to go out and buy not DraftKings but the other one in order to try to scrounge up business and make that more reliable for them, because for the longest time ESPN was a big moneymaker for Disney.
Right.
But then on Apple, Messi and that whole soccer thing is actually driving a ton of people to go over to Apple TV. So it seems like there is a sports industry, but some places are losing business and some places are gaining it.
Well, the weird thing is that the CW is only wanting 5 U.S. scripted shows or less to be shown on their show. So it was so strange when I read that the CW decided to pick up season 2 of this, which it seems didn't. Yeah, it
was already made. It was probably cheap, and so all they needed to do was air these few episodes. So I don't see it as a mistake, because again, the cast is really good. Mark O'Brien, Holt McCallany. When I first saw the cover of this and I saw 61st Street and I knew that I had never seen any sort of marketing for it, I was a little concerned, because in an age when the writer's strike is happening, you would think that they would be marketing the hell out of any scripted show that they still have that they haven't dispersed yet. But because they hadn't, I was afraid for this one. And when I started watching it, I was just pleasantly surprised.
It has a 6.5 on IMDb, 71% critic and audience score. The AV Club gave the series a C+ and called the show heavy-handed. But then you also have Richard Roper, he gave the series 3 out of 4 stars and says 61st Street is an expertly crafted production with docudrama style cinematography. But I want to take a second to talk about Peter Moffat. Does he sound familiar to you?
Just as similar as Stephen Moffat, who I think created Doctor Who or something.
I don't think there's any relation between them.
Yeah.
But I do have a game here. Again, he's someone who I believe was a lawyer. That's why he was able to write such a show that deals
David,
with
whatever his face is from The Practice and stuff.
So I have 3 truths and 2 lies here. So 2 of these are lies, and you guys have to figure out which one out of these 5.
I'm ready.
So in 2004, Peter Moffat wrote and directed Hawking about Stephen Hawking, which starred Benedict Cumberbatch in the lead role. That's the first one. The second one is he wrote an original series that the critically acclaimed The Night Of is based on. The third one is Decider said about the first season of 61st Street to stream it. The fourth one is we've done one of the shows he developed before for this podcast. And the fifth one is Chris Brancato, writer of Godfather of Harlem, wrote all 16 episodes for this series. So you have the Benedict Cumberbatch fact, the night of fact, Decider saying skip it, and then we've done one of the shows for the podcast, and that the Godfather of Harlem writer wrote the 16 episodes of this.
I remember for the night of, like, the writer's name would pop up every single episode. Obviously it would, but, like, it was right before they went into the actual thing. And that would be, like, James Gandolfini. And I feel like he had something to do with that. I'll go ahead and... I have no idea. So I'll say the last one was false.
You were actually right. The Godfather of Harlem has nothing to do with this, but he did write the critically acclaimed Criminal Justice that starred like Ben Whishaw from the James Bond films Fargo, Mary Poppins Returns, and then they took that and they based The Night of, which I know that you saw the full series for that, off of it. And then the show that we've done actually before this was back in December of 2020. If you remember, we did Your Honor. He created that series as well.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's between then the last two, which is again the Night of and what?
Oh, I mean, I thought I was just.
What was the other one though?
The other one was that Deciders said about the first season to skip it. They said to stream it.
Okay, so they said to stream it. Yeah. This is one of the unique shows though where I won't recommend like the earlier episodes. I would just recommend watching this one and then the finale.
Well,
so,
you haven't seen the other.
I'm not saying don't watch them. I'm just saying like I have a feeling that they weigh more heavily on like the melodrama and that these two episodes are really the climax, really like where things are brought together, and it's still got a little bit of melodrama if you like that, but it's I think mostly it's kind of in a weird way like Making a Murder, where you're watching the evidence come out there and you're like, oh well, this is really damning, and then you're watching the other side like pick it apart. And I'm just gonna say 7 out of 10.
Okay.
All right, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.